Where's my baby?
I'm Dana Denha.
And I'm Melissa Bondi, and this is Adventures in Parenthood, where we take a ride on the roller coaster that we call parenting.
Libraries are local gems that provide so much to the community they are in. Places like the Arbor District Library are not only here to provide books beyond your imagination, they also offer a number of programs to expand your mind and interests. Melissa, what I'd like to talk about with our little segment today is how you utilize your local library and why you find your local library to be such an important asset in your life.
I definitely have a new appreciation for the library since after having my daughter, and I definitely took advantage of it, especially when she was, I think, just over 1.5, maybe 2, when we would do the in-person at the time, story times, and I'd take her. And it was so fun because it was free. We were home. I was able to do it. And it was just the programs that they had locally here were super fun just to get acclimated with other kids. And it was free too. So it was super fun. And now, things have changed. I'm still taking advantage of it, mostly with the virtual events I call them, but the virtual option for a lot of the crafting stuff that they have, where you pick up and you bring home, and you've got a little project to do where it's so cute at the end. The end project are adorable. I mean, you can't deny that. And I'm even going to take advantage of some drawing lessons that they're going to have, the local library is going to have here. And it's all, again, just free. We've got the time, we're home. So I'm for sure taking advantage of the library more so now than before. What about you, or how are you doing there in Ann Arbor?
I have not really been taking advantage of the libraries during the pandemic, but I'm hoping that this conversation that we have a little later is going to get me back into the library a little bit more, because it's one of those things where, I've been very serious about the pandemic, and we don't really go a lot of places at all. Right. So it's like things that we did in the past, we just don't do right now. And we just try to do everything at home. Like we do crafts at home, but it's like me finding crafts and stuff. But before, literally, we were going to the library like once a week. We loved the library. She would go there and she would play. They'd have like a little area for toys, and she would be playing. And then I'd be looking for books for us to read. And you know what is like the cutest thing about the library is that kids always meet other kids there. And
right.
They would be hanging out. We go to the library for legitimately like less than an hour. And all of a sudden she'd have like a new friend that she met at the library. And it was like a thing that was happening almost every time we went, where these little kids are just drawn to each other at the library. And it's so precious. And even when she was a baby, and we did those baby groups at the library. And it was just so, they have really cool toys. First of all, they do sing along. So it starts with like them singing songs to the kids, and then they read a story, and then the kids get like free play with these cool library toys that you don't have at your house typically. And it was a lot of fun. The only thing I didn't like about it is that it had to end. Those baby groups have like a cutoff at like 2. They don't want kids over 2. And then it goes to the next age group. And we never really took advantage of the next level, but we should have. And I think it was because we were in preschool and stuff. And then everything changed. The world changed in an instant. So
absolutely. I thought that too, that social aspect of the library for our age, the ages of our girls at that time was like invaluable. It really was.
Yeah, because if they're not in daycare, like Keaton was at home all the time. So like the only kids she were experiencing before preschool were kids that lived next to us or relatives.
Sure.
So it's like that idea of like making a friend that isn't your relative is really cool. It's such a cool thing to see happen, especially when they're little like that. It's like the cutest thing ever to watch a little kid make a friend.
I know. I loved it too.
So on that note, we're actually going to speak with someone from the library. Joining us is Associate Library Director, Srilanya Turner.
Glad to be here.
Welcome.
So it's obviously been a strange year for everyone. And at the beginning, we know library services weren't really going the way we would normally see them go, but you guys have, adapted a lot during the pandemic. Can you kind of talk about how you've adapted to continue to bring these very important services to the city?
Sure. So there are a couple ways that you can think about it. One, a lot of times when people think about the library, the first thing they're going to think about is how are you going to give me my books, right? And so that was one of the things that we wanted to get up and going. So we have a system now where people can go ahead and request what they're looking for, and then we will retrieve them, put them aside for folks, and then they can come into one of our vestibules and just pick up their books. They're checked out and ready to go. But we're talking about kids right now, right? And so I can see your backgrounds. I can see that you have kids in your house. So that you want more than one book at a time. And that sometimes you don't really, you just want a variety. You want to go past the shelf and get a bag full of stuff. And so we've recently started doing what we call shelf service. So we will do that for you. You tell us what your kid likes, and this is for adults too, but you tell us what you like, how many you're looking for, and then our staff who know the materials will go and find that stuff and put it in a bag for you and have that be your books. But then we also know that one of the things that kids, parents of young kids are usually wanting from us are story times. And we actually started our story times almost immediately. We did the stories before we did the books, actually.
Yeah, I remember you guys were rolling out. I mean, the librarians really stepped up to the plate when it came to getting these videos out, because I think obviously this is not something that they were used to doing. They would read to kids in the library, but being on camera is a totally different situation.
Yes, we had some very, very dedicated, intrepid learners on our hands with that. And 5 days a week, we have a new story time for our preschool audience. We made it a little broader, right? Because most people have more than one kid at home. So we tried to be mindful of that. But you can get story times on our YouTube site, and even some brief programs for babies as well. And then for older kids, we have a variety of hands-on activities that we've created videos for. We've tried to hit that from a couple of different angles.
Okay.
Why don't you talk about some of those hands-on videos that you have for the older kids to experience?
We've recorded hundreds of videos since we've closed, and anyone who looks at this is gonna be like, sure, you're gonna choose your own to talk about. But we did, because that's what I can remember right now. But we did something called 30 Days of Clay at the beginning of the year, right? Because that's a program that was super popular in the before times. And if you get your hands on some polymer clay, we have 30 different videos showing you how to make 30 different animals. And we have a lot of simple crafts. In the very beginning, we focused on trying to make sure that that we were creating videos for things that people had a good chance of having in their houses, right? And recently, we revamped our events page so that you can go and look at that. Basically a catalog of videos that we created during this time, right? Because we created so many that it was hard to navigate through them. And we were starting to get questions about, so you did a thing about some paper and you made a mouse. Can you find it for me? And we would say, yes, we can. And then we would go, okay, just gotta look for that.
Yeah, so I mean, you're cataloging all your virtual stuff like in a library now.
Pretty much. We've essentially created this digital collection of things that you can do at home with your kids.
And if folks don't have to be members of the library necessarily, right? If they want to log on, or do you need to have a library card to watch any of this, any of the videos, your new virtual videos?
Sure. You do not need to log in. You can just go straight to either our YouTube site, which you'll just be able to flip through all the things that we've put up, or if you look at our events page, if you go to AADL.tv, actually, what you'll be able to see are our events broken down by category, but you can just get right in, no login or no library number required.
I just think it's so fantastic that you're continuing to bring these services, because I think the Ann Arbor District Library was always known for having these really cool events and things that you could do with a library. And I think that was probably the number one thing that people were really missing. And that's why you guys jumped on this sort of virtual AADL TV sort of thing. And it works. It really does. And the programming's really good. And top notch. I'd like to go back to the one you mentioned, the 30 Days of Clay. And this is like something that is like mesmerizing to watch, like watching these little, I don't even need to make them. I just want to watch them being made. And there's such cool little things that like I think you could even get like some of them your younger kids could do even these clays, because they look pretty easy to do. Actually, it's pretty intuitive the way it's being shown on this show.
We were going for that, right? Because like so many of us like have kids or like know people who have kids, and we understand this time is not easy. You know, like you thought a year ago that you were going to be taking your kids to all the places that you normally take them, and you would like take them to the grocery store where they got a sticker if they just hung in there for the grocery shop. All that is off of the table right now, right? We knew you're tired, you know, and so like what we didn't want to do is have a video that felt like yet another thing that you had to add to everything else that you're doing, right? And so like in some of the shorter videos, we wanted it to be true that you could just kind of watch the thing and say like, you know what, we're going to watch this today. And then that's your thing, you know, like.
And it sort of, that show specifically reminds me of like, almost like shows that I watched when I was a kid, like almost like watching like a Mr. Dress Up or something, where there's like a part in the middle that they show you just creating something out of clay. You know, or like when back in the day, Nickelodeon used to do this all the time when they'd go in between their shows and they'd create like these little claymation things for kids to watch. And that's what it feels like to me, the 30 Days of Clay.
We're also super excited about the Saturday show. And one of our staff members, you know, he was thinking about like, okay, what can we do? Right. And remembering like Saturday cartoons and things like that. I think you probably can feel that, right? Like that call back to that. But we're really excited about creating an original variety show for our families. You know, some folks, they recognize people from having come to the library. And one thing I think is really special is that when we're able to open again, some younger kids who hadn't had the experience of like coming in and seeing these people, they're going to have a familiar face when they walk through because of the Saturday show.
Right. And I know I caught it, and I think Dana caught it. We were able to see it and we thought it was awesome. So we definitely wanted to promote that on CTN as well. We thought it was, you know, you're reaching another audience because it was so well done. So we were excited. We're excited to have that.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Saturday show because it's such a good show. It really is. And your librarian, I'm assuming he's a librarian that's creating it, is really funny and he's got great ideas. And is this like a collective thing? Is this just his mind coming up with these sort of little stories that are happening in the Saturday show and the hand puppets and everything?
So he is actually a library technician with us. It's really, we have a lot of librarians and we have a lot of other people who contribute to this work. And when we have the opportunity to make sure, that we, you know, we don't create the image that it's just librarians. So
there's a bunch of people that work at the library. There's a lot of things that go into running the Ann Arbor District Library is big and there's a lot to it.
Yep. And our ideas are coming from all over the place. So Toby had the idea for the show and he recognized that he wanted to collaborate with a bunch of other folks. And so they basically have a team where they get together and discuss how they're going to put together the next shows. But he's definitely the architect of that series.
Can you think of any other shows that you're currently playing that, you know, would really hit home for like us parents hanging out with our kids? Because I think like even like during this pandemic, it's like you're home so much. So you almost like run out of things. You're like running out of ideas. You're running out of things to do.
Sure. I mean, that one's a little tougher because the audiences are so broad, but we have broken it down a little bit on that AADL.TV page. And so then you can kind of go at it for what you're looking for, right? So like if you're looking for something really quick, you'll be able to see our list of fast activities. If you're looking for something a little bit longer, you'll be able to do that as well. So I would kind of recommend browsing, because then you're going to find the ones that really hit what's right for your family.
How has sort of everyone's jobs changed at the library? It seems like everyone's jobs have changed drastically.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing to think about providing events when you don't get to be with the people, right? Most people who come to work at the library, it's the people that really drive the experience, right? So it's like thinking about it just differently, right? It's a different question that we have here. How do you serve people when you're unable to be like right in front of them? That's just a totally different way of thinking about it. And then the collaboration has been totally different, right? That's one of the things that we notice a lot. Like this isn't unique to us, of course. But that like sharing of ideas that happens when you're next door to somebody or like you're leaning over to talk to someone has been totally
right
for us. I mean, but some of our jobs have been very similar, right? Like people who are grabbing the books and prepping them to come out for the public. That's pretty similar to the before times. And then we've had people stepping into roles differently, right? Like we've had people who in the past would have been across a desk who are helping out with preparing the materials differently or leaning into creating videos and things. So it's been a lot of change for a lot of people.
Do you foresee, after we can sort of just hopefully things are starting to get back to normal, do you foresee continuing, this AADL TV, the Saturday show, and like all these great programming that you have that you're reaching more people than our community?
Mm-hmm. We definitely think that there are going to be a lot of things that we hang on to. We'll look at the bigger picture and see like where these things fit in the new landscape. But we think that AADL TV is here to stay. We think that the Saturday show is here to stay. I think that shelf service in some capacity is here to stay. And so, one of the silver linings, I guess, is that when you look at this different situation and ask like, okay, how are we going to get to serve our community now, right? You come up with new solutions that have lasting applications.
Right. Protocols are different a lot. I think they've changed now. And like you said, some of them are here to stay. I feel like we're in the same boat. There's some things that have changed that aren't going to go away. And it was a way to make a change that may have never come. I find that the library, at least locally for me too, I'm not in Ann Arbor, but their story times and their craft making, as far as like, I do a lot of pickups. So I pick up these crafts and I take them home. And I find myself doing that twice a month. And it's been very helpful, definitely for me as a parent and having a child at home who's getting bored. Like Dana said, we're getting bored or running out of stuff and things to do. But yeah, I think it's fun, and I look forward to when those are announced. When that stuff is announced, it's super fun. Have you had any issues or any, I don't say issues, but any concerns regarding, like you said, with the books and the checkout, as far as these kids taking, different people handling the books, with germs and things like that? Anything along those lines, or anything changed there with cleaning and prepping?
Well, one thing that we're happy about is that we know a lot more about how this all works now, right? And one thing that we've learned from the reading that we do to just stay on top of what we need to do is that there's not a whole lot of surface transfer. And so, we're very conservative though when it comes to the safety of the materials, right? And so we do have like a period between when people turn things in and when we're passing them along. So we feel like we're doing everything that we need to do to keep people safe, and then some. We feel like we're doing just a little bit more just to make sure that our staff feel good about what we're doing and that the public can feel good about the items that they're bringing home.
All right, well, we're just going to take a 60-second break and we'll be back with more from the AADL. we're back with Srilanya, and she was just talking about how, the libraries are safe and stuff. I'd like to call back to when you discussed these librarians sort of cherry picking books for your kids, because this is something me and my daughter used to go to the West Branch Library once a week before it hit. And we just like completely stopped doing library stuff. Like I didn't even like think about like doing this virtual checkout stuff, because this is another thing that's happening is I feel like I've been having to buy more books because I'm like getting tired of reading the same books every night. You read so many books a night, and then it's like you just sort of run out of stuff. And that's why I loved having the library, because I would go and I'd get like 6 books, and then a week later I'd go back and get 6 more books. And so like I know that I can go like online, and that's like the coolest thing, because a lot of times when you're looking for like there were these books that she really liked, the Brownie and Pearl books. And I had never seen them until I went to the Ann Arbor District Library, and she fell in love with them. And it's like, now I rely on the library for my Brownie and Pearl fix. But it'd be great to have like this advantage of having someone that really knows what is at the library, helping you find books that your kids would like. Because when I go, it's just like me pulling. I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just pulling stuff,
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that like you've got access to those people at all the time. One of our tools that we use all the time is a chat that everyone who's on our public service desk is they have to be on it. Like that's a part of the job. And so like even if you ask somebody who's like, oh, Brownie and Pearl, they're gonna go like one moment, and they're gonna ask the 30 other people who are working to help you, so that you don't have to just go ahead and pick. But you might just use shelf. Now that we have shelf service, you could even skip that step. But I just want to make sure that you know that we're always thrilled to get what we call readers advisory questions.
Yeah. Sure. And there's another thing that I noticed, like we were dealing, and we've talked about this topic before, about books that deal with death for children. And that was a big one that I had to go to the library to get too, because I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't want to necessarily have it on our bookshelf, but I wanted to be able to talk about it with her, because we were dealing with it. Right. So it's like these sort of books that maybe you don't want to own, but like you need them as a resource, and they're a really good resource to have.
Or even previewing, right? Because sometimes you just want to decide whether you want it on your bookshelf or not.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And, we all know books are not cheap. They're expensive. To get like a real book in your hands these days. I mean, like $12, $13 for like a nice hardcover book. So if you get the book and then it's not that great, it's like, it feels like a waste kind of thing. So it's nice to go to the library and sort of like, sometimes the books are a hit and sometimes they're a miss. I mean, I'll admit that I don't always pick the right ones. But can people physically go into the library right now?
We're not yet open for browsing.
Okay. Have you seen an increase in your traffic, even though that, folks can't come in, but you have all these virtual and curbside type services and people coming in into the different branches?
We are doing a lot of circulation. I couldn't tell you the percentage, but we're doing a high percentage of the amount of circulation that we would have done beforehand. So we do know that people are taking advantage of these services. The distribution of like what's being checked out is changed a little bit. Like the pie slice for children's material is a little bit higher than it would have been under normal times, but we have been getting a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I would expect so. I would think so. I'm at the library more than I was, pre-pandemic. And so I would think the Ann Arbor, especially the parents and folks there would be too.
Yeah, we've been happy to know that people are still using their library. We had a batch of programs, and internally we are calling them the Snow Squad programs, because we live in this lovely state that occasionally will dump inches and inches of snow upon us, right? And those are the times where usually that's when you round up your kids and take them somewhere where they can be for a chunk of time. And we were thinking about that, and we have a bunch of programs that we put out, the Snow Squad programs, with activities that you can do with your kids, taking advantage of that snow and cold weather.
So is this involved with I was just going to bring up the winter games, which is the library always does these sort of scavenger hunt sort of games to get people, and then there's prizes at the end too, right?
So the winter game is one of these games that cropped up during the pandemic, right? Typically we have the summer game, which is full of like events and codes and like scavenger hunts and things like that. And last year when the pandemic started, we decided to do the bummer game, what we call the bummer game, right? Having activities and then here we are still in the pandemic, right? And so we decided to do the winter game where people can, solve badges that using their problem solving skills and things like that. And certain activities, we have something that you can do. We have certain categories like do, listen, and things like that to, break it up. Right? Because we've all been in the same place. And then any points that people gain throughout the winter game will be applied to their summer game totals.
Oh, so these are connected. The two games are connected?
Yep. Your points will count later. We don't have a separate shop for the winter, but you will not lose your points.
Nice. So why should people do these games? Have you participated?
Because it's fun to do them. It's fun to look and see what people came up with. Sometimes it's just a fun challenge to do them. Some of them you'll learn stuff about the area. Like for example, I'm going to call back to a past one, but we had one that was all about parks. And usually the ones that right? Like who would have known about all these different ones, right? Like there's all sorts of nuggets and adventures to be had by playing this game.
Yeah, that's cute. That's so cute. And I know I get your newsletter. You guys send out, is it a weekly newsletter? The AADL sends it out. And is all this stuff promoted in the newsletter?
Yep, we have every time we have like the winter game gets promoted when we have big things like that, or if we have a big author who's gonna like speak or do an event on AADL TV, then we also highlight materials that people might be interested in. So you'll always get like a smattering of what we have coming up, and then you'll always get like a link to the full list as well.
Yeah, seem pretty comprehensive every week, and I'm like, wow, they are really putting out the content in every for every audience. I think it's fantastic what you guys do.
We're just about out of time, but if you just want to add why people should be taking advantage of the Ann Arbor District Library.
Well, you're paying for it, so you should get your money's worth. I believe in that so much. And when you see like everything that we are offering, it's because we understand that we're trying to make sure that we offer something for everyone. But no matter who you are, there's probably something here for you at the library. So whether you want to find out something, whether you want to switch it up and do something that you don't normally do, or just looking for something to take your mind off of everything else, we are somewhere that you can come to do that.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, Srilanya.
Thank you for having me.
If you have an idea for a parenting show topic or guest, talk to us on Twitter and Facebook at #CTN Ann Arbor.
For more on our programming and services, visit a2gov.org/CTN, or you can visit us at youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to watch a full lineup, and remember to like, comment, and share. Thanks for joining us on this adventure in parenthood.